Well, welcome to the Eagle Sports Network sports show. For the first time, we're kicking off this at Tupelo Christian Preparatory School. And I'm Aubrey Bourne, the athletic director here at TCPS, and I've got a great roundup of guests here with me today. And I would like for each one of you guys, if you would, just take a brief second to give your name and what everybody would associate you with. I think your name alone will speak for itself, but if you'd give your title, I'd appreciate it.
Rocky Felker, football, Mississippi State.
Brad Locke, I cover Mississippi State for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal.
Jim Holder, sports director at WTVA Television in Tupelo.
Sean Holliday, head football coach here at Tupelo Christian Prep.
Guys, again, thanks for coming out today. I know you guys have a busy schedule, and one of our first topics is the Super Bowl this weekend. Of course, if you follow any Twitter, Baltimore Ravens fan, or are you, on the 49ers, the classic team that's been in the Super Bowl for years and years? So if you would, just maybe what team you're pulling for and a little bit of hubbub that's going on as far as Super Bowl weekend.
Well, I'm going to ride the fence. I had something to do with recruiting Pernell McPhee. Of course, he plays for the Ravens, and I coached Anthony Dixon who plays for the 49ers. So it's kind of I'm pulled in both directions. I really think the Ravens, being underdogs, I'm kind of pulling for them, I would have to say.
Being an objective journalist, Aubrey, I cannot pull for any team. So I have no favorites, but I am predicting a Ravens victory. I will say that.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know if I'd be objective or journalist, but here goes. I will say this: when it was the conference, people asked me who was going to be in the Super Bowl. I said, I think probably the Falcons and the Patriots. So I also said that means you should probably go with Baltimore and San Francisco. So keep that in mind. The 49ers. I think if you looked in the entire season, looked like the better team, but the Ravens really seem like a team of destiny. Getting Ray Lewis back and Flacco having the postseason he's having. So, but I'll go with the 49ers, just to like a 24-20. I'll throw it out there. So
24-20.
But not
prediction's been made.
We got area ties to both teams, so it'd be very interesting.
Well, me personally, it's no doubt about it. Baltimore all the way. I got a personal interest. My godson Pernell's playing for the Ravens. And not only that, I mean, I want to see Ray Lewis go out with the championship after all he's been through and all he's going through right now. I'd love to see Ray, and that team is really pulling around Ray. They're feeding off him. And I just can't wait to see him come out of the tunnel and do that dance one last time. That's all my kids keep talking about. Daddy, I can't wait to see the squirrel dance. I want to see the squirrel dance.
Well, two personal stories real quick and follow the Ravens as well. Their long snapper, Morgan Cox, played for us at Evangelical Christian School there in Memphis, and that's a pretty powerful testimony and story there and in and of itself. So I got that connection. And I think Adam Gore tweeted earlier about Michael Orr and the blind side, and I was just reminded, the head football coach for Michael Orr during the blind side was also Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss. So a lot of ties, as you say, to a local area. And then you go across the ball from, you say Ray Lewis, in that same mouthful. We talk on the other side of the ball, one of the best upcoming linebackers, probably the replacement to the name Ray Lewis, is Patrick Willis. And what an excellent linebacker he is.
It's kind of like a passing of the football from Ray Lewis to Patrick Willis. It's a great game. I think it's going to be a great game.
Yes, sir. Well, again, thank you guys, and I'm sure along with all of America, we'll be tuned in Sunday to check out who's going to win the game, the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers.
And this segment was brought to you by the Office of the DJ. Welcome back to Eagle Sports Network. This segment we'll be talking about college coaches going pro. How hard, Coach Felker being a former college coach, how hard do you think that adjustment is going from the college level to the professional level?
Well, it has to be hard. I mean, not many have been successful, really, when you look at it. Of course, Nick Saban is one of the best coaches in our lifetime, and he didn't have the success in the NFL as he has in the SEC or college football. And he's done a great job recruiting at Alabama. I think that's one thing you have to give him credit for. And in the NFL, you don't recruit, you draft. Mm-hmm. And so it's certainly it's a different, and it's going to be interesting to see how Chip Kelly does going from Oregon to Philadelphia now. the NFL is changing a lot with the running more college offenses. We saw Seattle, with a mobile quarterback. Of course, San Francisco's got a mobile quarterback. Griffin at Washington Redskins. So a lot of the NFL are running college offenses, and so it's going to be it's going to be interesting to watch Philadelphia and see that spread offense how the Eagles do.
Yeah, I'm really interested by that whole Chip Kelly situation because you mentioned, Rocky, the quarterbacks, and this used to be a pocket passer league, and you'd have those dual threat quarterbacks. They rarely seemed to stick for a long time, and then you had coaches like Steve Spurrier would come to the league with their brand of high flying offense, and it didn't work. But
right.
I think the league's more accepting of that now, and you're starting to see that shift. I mean, and again, you look at Colin Kaepernick, the 49ers quarterback. He's kind of that prototype.
Well, and not only in hiring the head coaches, but you're seeing more NFL guys wanting to get college assistants on their staff.
Right.
Because they're used to playing that kind of offenses, and thus they know how to stop it.
Yeah.
They've had success. Instead of a defensive end just rearing back and rushing the quarterback like they do in the NFL, now they have to worry about the dive. They got to worry about quarterback. They got to worry about the pitch. So those coaches. You're seeing more coaches, not only head coach but assistant coaches, getting assistant coaching jobs in the NFL because of that experience in college.
And something maybe y'all can speak to as coaches a little better than I can. I saw this maybe on Twitter the other day, but the reason maybe that these mobile quarterbacks are having success is that these defensive ends they have in the league right now aren't trained to contain these kind of guys. Maybe they're more trained to be rush specialists a little bit, and maybe it's a matchup thing. I don't know.
Have y'all heard of Johnny Football?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, possibly.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Johnny Football changes defensive ends on how they want to rush him.
Yeah,
and that's what you're talking about, Brad.
Yeah.
It's a different game, and it's. I remember a few weeks ago, Seattle was getting ready to play, I think, Washington in the playoffs, and somebody made the statement that that's going to be a heck of a college game.
Yeah.
Because it's a college offense going against each other, and I think it's really a statement, in our lifetime. NFL, the option has been around since the wishbone, back in the '60s and '70s, and now it's just now making a big impact in the pro league.
Go ahead.
Well, if you look at the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, both of those guys, the Harbaugh brothers, both of those were college coaches, correct?
Yeah,
I know
was at Stanford.
he was at
Jim
Stanford, and I
Harbaugh,
think
I should
John.
Yeah, Jim. I think Jim was.
John was also at a college for a while.
That's right.
Well, keep in mind also Pete Carroll with the Seahawks. He was at USC for a long. Of course, Pete Carroll many years ago. People forget he was with, I believe, the Jets.
That's
many
correct.
years ago, and he wasn't real successful there, but went on, became the coach at USC, had all kinds of success, and come back and done well with the Seahawks. So it can work. But then Brad brought up Spurrier earlier. I mean, he's won at Duke, won at Florida, won at South Carolina, but went to the Redskins and didn't do anything. So it's not a given that you're going to win, but not many make it. But some do, like Pete Carroll.
But a lot of times, and that's like you take Chip Kelly. Nothing wrong with that gimmick offense in college. But when you've got linebackers that are just as fast as your running backs in the pros, I mean, that's like even with the pistol that the 49ers are running now. We'll see how good that pistol is this week when that Ravens defense lines up on the other side, when Terrell Suggs is over there and Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and those type of guys. We'll really see if that gimmick-type offense will work in the pros. And that's just my opinion now.
Of course, I think it's always been an injury factor that a quarterback can't take the hits in the pros because of the injury, and then, of course, how much are you going to pay him? You're going to pay him millions of dollars, and in one game he could be out for the year. So do you want your quarterbacks taking that kind of punishment week after week? And it's not a 12-game season. It's it's 16 games, I believe. So,
Right. I think in addition to what all those are definitely critical factors in the determination of success or not success from college to pro, but as far as management, I think about like a Jerry Jones and how he tends to, from our perspective, manage his program, and then maybe an owner that would say, hey, I want it to be yours, your ownership. I would dare say it's more business, more at the pro level, like you say, the draft, and I think it's a coach coaching, the X's, the O's, that part of it, all those names. There's no doubt they're great at what they do, or they wouldn't be at the top echelon of the SEC, which is arguably the best conference in the nation. So I think it's that management piece that becomes a big factor as far as ownership and what role that coach gets to play in that.
Well, and what you just said, too, the draft. When you have to draft somebody in a certain spot, as opposed to Nick Saban walking in your house, setting them national championship rings in front of you.
I wish we had a draft in college football. We got a signing date coming up, and but it'd be interesting if you drafted. Whereas Alabama, they probably get half of their signing class are first round draft choices now.
Exactly.
It'd be spread out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for this part of the segment. It's been brought to you by Ovid. Welcome back to Eagle Sports Network. We're back with our guests here today, and we appreciate the TCPS, Tupelo Christian Preparatory School video production class, and their effort in making this production possible. And we got Jim Holder and Brad Locke, Coach Holliday, and myself. We were going to discuss recruiting. We had Rocky Felker with us, and he's not going to join us this segment because it's right in his wheelhouse, and we want to make sure that the NCAA doesn't come visiting TCPS for any conversations we might have. So we're going Black Ops here, and here we are talking about Mississippi State with Brad Locke, who covers them regularly. What information could you give us today?
Well, signing day less than a week away, and the class is shaping up pretty nicely. The big concern, obviously, and that's been the talk, the buzz for the last week or so, is Chris Jones, the five-star defensive end out of Houston, Mississippi, has been committed to Mississippi State since last June. And then a lot of people really started getting on him the past month. Just really started he kind of came on their radar. He went from like a 3-star recruit to 5-star recruit. 24/7 Sports moved him all the way up to number 2 in the country in their player rankings. So he really kind of skyrocketed, and suddenly he's getting all this attention that he wasn't getting before. And so now he's kind of, trying to handle it best he can, but now he's maybe not quite as solid of a commitment to MSU as he was. In fact, he has said that on signing day he'll announce between State and Ole Miss. So the Rebels are back in the mix, and they've already got. It looks like they're going to get at least the number 1 player in the country with Robert Kimdichie. It looks like he's going to commit to Ole Miss. So if they get him and they get Chris Jones, that would be quite the coup for Ole Miss. And Jim, you can you follow this too. I mean, right. Hugh Freeze is putting together a heck of a class.
He really has, and it's been amazing. You consider, just this time last year, we were talking about how they're coming off a couple of losing seasons, and what a difference a year makes, even at 7-6. So. Yeah, of course, Kimdichie, of course, he's got the connection with his brother there, and I believe it was announced yesterday he was going to sign early Wednesday morning. Of course, still not saying where, but yeah, all signs lead Ole Miss at least at this point. Chris Jones, you never know. There's some in-house visits this weekend for Mullen and Freeze scheduled, and it's going to be interesting to see. I believe it's Freeze first and then Mullen.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of the so it could be who's in there last.
Maybe so.
You just never know. I say this every year, Brad. You'd agree with me. Till somebody signs on the dotted line, we can talk about who people get into the commitment thing, but kids change their minds. Things happen, crazy things. I remember Robert Elliott. More than a year before from Oklahoma committed to Ole Miss, and then he wound up signing with MSU on signing day. So you just never know. That's the thing.
Signing day is going to have some drama to it this year.
It will.
No doubt. But you look at MSU's class, if they can keep Jones, to me this is a really, really good class if they could keep him. They got some other good players in there, mind you. Now, they've lost a couple. They lost Corey Smith, a 4-star receiver. He decommitted. Looks like he's going to Ohio State. They Deion Mix, offensive lineman from South Panola, decommitted. But they picked up a kid on Thursday. Talando Cleveland. He flipped from Georgia Tech, a 3-star defensive back, according to 24/7 Sports. So, overall, it's a good class. They've got some good 4-star kids in there as well, and some guys that will come in and make an immediate impact. I think it's a top 20 class thereabouts right now in the national rankings. So, I think, though, if they lose Chris Jones, that's going to take a lot of shine off of this class.
So that's amazing to me. How we always talk about Ole Miss and Mississippi State is being able to go out and get the big name players.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about Ole Miss possibly being a top 10 class, and Mississippi State having a top 20 class. In the state of Mississippi, 2 schools that are less than 2 hours apart.
Yeah.
That speaks highly of both schools to me, to be able to go out and get a 5-star recruit like Chris Jones or Robert Kimdichie. I mean, and we didn't even bring up Ashton Shumpert,
Oh, yeah,
who
Ashton
is
Shumpert.
committed to the Gatorade Player of the Year, that's committed to Mississippi State.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about top-notch football players staying in the state of Mississippi. That is huge for the state.
And who would have thought that the top 2 players in the country, at least according to one website, would be playing in the state of Mississippi? Kimdichie to Ole Miss, and then Jones, number 2 player, either to Ole Miss or MSU.
And then Antonio Connor.
Antonio Connor's up there.
You know?
That's a possibility too. And I think I saw somewhere, who knows if this is true, I think Saban was visiting, so him today, or reportedly, supposedly, with Alabama. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And there's so many kids. I mean, and of course, you mentioned Chris Jones. Had a chance to see him play in person a couple of times.
Yeah.
A man among boys, pretty solid player. A great kid too.
Yeah.
Great kid. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Of course, also you got the kid from UPOR, the receiver Jones. Had a chance to see him a couple of times. He's committed to Ole Miss. As far as Mississippi State, you mentioned Shumpert. The young man from Columbus, the offensive lineman,
Jake Thomas.
Jake Thomas. Thank you.
I have a question. I remember now. I'm finna date myself here. When we were in school, you could sign early. You know, I signed. Yeah, I actually signed my baseball scholarship early during an early signing period.
Yeah.
Do they not do that anymore?
There's no early signing period in football unless you're a JUCO transfer. You can sign in December. But that's been a discussion, especially this year. A lot of people want
because
to see
you
an
think
early
about
signing
it,
period.
if they do the early signing period, it's probably not even a question where Jones goes.
Oh yeah,
because he's already signed that scholarship to Mississippi State.
Yeah,
you know, and it's already over and done with.
Right.
It takes away a lot of that madness that you're seeing now in the month of January.
I think we'd be in favor of that.
Yeah.
Early signing period for football. That just
sign me
say.
up.
One more question: how do they come up with a 3-star, 4-star? I mean, how can a kid go? And pretty much, let's be honest, if it wasn't for the Under Armour All-Star game, Chris Jones is still a 3-star player. Right. But he goes there and he shows out, and people see just how good he is, and now he's the number 2 recruit in the nation.
Well, some of it has to do with exposure, and he wasn't getting a ton of exposure compared to other guys. You know, I mean, Robert Kimdichie, he's been on the radar forever. You know, people have known about him. Chris Jones, I think, wasn't he hurt a little bit, Jim, as a junior?
He was.
And so, so not a lot of people saw him. And I think another good example of this is Donald Gray, who's committed to MSU. And when he committed, I haven't looked lately, but when he committed, I think 24/7 Sports had him as a 4-star. One of the other sites, Rivals or Scout, had him as 3 stars, and the other one had him as 2 stars. And talking with people, the reason he got 4 stars from 24/7 is because they've seen more of him. You know, they have more information. I mean, what they do, I can't speak exactly to how they come up with the ratings. It's a bit of a mystery, but they try to, they obviously try to figure out how talented the guy is. You know, what he can do, his tools and everything. They analyze all of that and just try to come up with some kind of score on just how good he is. I mean,
you never heard of high school combines recently, past few years. That's a very flat. Your 40 time is a measurable tool.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to get you ranked and get you some type of star power, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
and you have those in Tupelo. I mean, Scout has one in Tupelo every, I guess, end of May, beginning of June. They've been doing that for 3 or 4 years now. So it's been, and a lot of kids come to that.
Yeah, I mean, the star ratings, they are what they are. I mean, like Dan Mullen says, he doesn't pay attention to the recruiting sites. He said he's got his own ratings, although when you look in the players' bios, they'll have the Rivals rating.
And you take a kid like, for example, Darius Slay this year.
Yeah.
Probably was, a 3-star?
Something like that.
Wounds up going JUCO and then goes to state this year. And him and Banks, the best combination of DBs in the country.
Yeah.
So, and then I saw just the other day, because I keep up with Darius, he's like number 85 now and looking for the draft.
He's climbing, I think.
Yeah, he's steady climbing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like that stars and all that, you still got to produce.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you got to produce.
And Dan Mullen makes a good point. They have their own rating system, which is how, of course, they should do it as coaches. I mean, they feel like they know they have an eye for talent, better than anybody, especially for what fits their needs. So that's kind of what they go by. But and you'll see sometimes a 4-star kid just won't pan out.
Here you go. I got a question. Barrett Jones, when he come out, what star was he?
That's a great question. I just remember.
You coached him, and he don't.
I don't remember stars. I tell you what stars you do remember, and you mentioned Saban coming for a visit, is when Philip Fulmer drives in, when Charlie Strong's on your football field, when those guys are arriving at your campus, you've got the top-notch athletes. So those visits by the head coach of a D1 program let you know what kind of quality your athlete is at that particular time. And I think the big thing that we take away from here was mentioned earlier is nationally it is nice to hear great things about Mississippi. And with two programs, I believe, very much on the rise, when we're still talking about those kids who are participating this weekend in the Super Bowl, all those names from the state of Mississippi, what a quality job our high school coaches, much like Coach Holliday here and others, who are going out there on Friday nights and day in, day out, teaching high school kids how to play the game at the next level earlier and earlier. I would say the quality of football has improved.
And you know what? Talking about Mississippi, here's what's amazing to me. Look at all the junior colleges that are in Mississippi, all the HBCUs that are in Mississippi, and we still produce three. Southern is usually there. Yeah. 3 quality Division I football teams. And that's got to be – we have to have the best football talent, to me, in the nation, in Mississippi.
I think per capita, you could make that argument.
Yeah, got to be.
Well, you look back over the years, you had Walter Payton, who was at one time the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. You got Jerry Rice, best receiver, although if you ask Randy Moss, I guess these days.
Randy's wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Randy is wrong. I would agree with that. So you look like a Brett Favre, guys who've made an impact. Some of the biggest football stars, I'm preaching the choir here, and I know everybody knows
Archie
this.
Manning.
Exactly. So, all kinds of guys. So, I shouldn't be not probably surprised the rest of the nation, not surprised us.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I will steal one more segment, as you mentioned, Barrett Jones, to say first thing in March. We haven't nailed the specific day because he will be, of course, signing a pro contract. He will be at a banquet for TCPS to benefit TCPS athletics. We're excited about having him in Tupelo in the month of March. So got the fortunate opportunity to coach that young man, and he's got a wonderful family. We're going to talk about raising champions, a family affair. So you guys be sure and come out. Hey, this is Coach Aubrey Boren with TCPS Athletics and the Eagle Sports Network. Again, joined by a host of sports gurus here, Jim Holder, Brad Locke, and Coach Rocky Felker, and Coach Sean Holliday. And we're just talking today about baseball preview. Monday, guys, I think I went out in shorts for just a little bit, and then weather radically changed, and that's the way baseball opens up, isn't it, Coach Holliday?
Yeah,
you go from 100 degrees to 30 degrees.
You can always know when it's high school baseball time because it'll start snowing, the ground starts freezing, and we're out there practicing baseball. It seemed like they would reverse the seasons: football during the winter and baseball during the summer.
Yeah, I don't know that wouldn't be a bad idea. Well, what's going on in the baseball world? You guys that are in those worlds, Coach Holliday, give us a quick update on TCPS baseball. I think we just signed 2 guys.
We just had 2 kids. Drew Carter signed with Itawamba Community College. Stephen Sexton signed with Northwest Community College. Hopefully to have a couple more kids to sign. Really looking for a great year this year from the Eagles. We'll have probably, I think, 7 seniors this year. So we'll be a senior-laden team. Really, got a great head coach, Coach Lowry. We've really been, these past few days, been working the kids real hard. Just looking forward to February 22nd to go on that diamond and play a little baseball. We open up with Columbus and West Point, so we're not shying away from anybody.
Yeah. We all did pretty good last year, didn't we?
We did. We finished, I guess you would say, I think number 16 in the state for a 1A program to finish in the top 20 in the state. That's pretty big, and we lost to Greenville St. Joe in the north half.
Program that's not been around very long, as far as it's been pretty solid every season. You guys have had a team, so that's saying something.
Yeah, and when you start signing kids to college scholarships, you number one, you've got good kids in your program, and that's what we have here at TCPS. Coaches don't make good players make good coaches.
That's right,
and that's what we've been blessed with here at TCPS is good players.
Amen. I second that. But I will say, as an athletic director, we've got one of the best coaching staffs in the state. I think Coach Holliday, Coach White is an addition to our coaching staff this year, along with Coach Lowry. And maybe you guys could talk about this a little bit as we're talking about baseball preview. May know this, but first cousin is Brian Long, Big Daddy over at Fulton High School. Delta State seems to disciple great baseball guys. I think of Rick Collier, Brian Long, Will Lowry, name some other names that are out there that are Delta State products. Whatever they're doing as an athletic director, man, that's a program I want to emulate to say, hey, they're producing a product that goes out and continues baseball.
Yeah, and you got Coach Kennison there. Of course, I guess it all started back with Boo Ferris and all that. But I mean, start with him first of all. Coach Kennison's done a great job. Of course, Delta State won a national championship several years ago, played for the national title last year in Division II. I think they're number 2, number 3 preseason. I mean, they get kids from this area. They get kids from all over. So, something in the water over there in Cleveland, I think.
I know we've been having a lot of camps. Of course, we're busy football recruiting, but there's baseball camps going day in, day out, every weekend. Seems like they've been in Starkville, and like you said, the weather might not be baseball weather right now, but they've been with the Palmero building. We've been going inside and a bunch of cars and a bunch of baseball gloves hanging out. So, so everybody's getting ready for baseball.
Yeah, I was in Starkville on Wednesday, and they had the annual duty draw, as they call it, the little parade the fans have, and they take their rigged out trucks to behind the outfield wall, the left field lounge and all that. So, we're just 2 weeks away from MSU's season starting. So it's getting close. I mean, they're in the midst of preseason practice. They open against Portland on the 15th of February, and number 5 in the preseason. I think this is going to be a really good team. And, Rocky, you're on campus. You see it. I think the fans are pretty excited about this.
Well, we talk about SEC being a football-dominated league, but baseball ranks in there somewhere.
Yes,
yeah, it is quite a I don't know how many teams in the SEC go to the College World Series, but it's been well represented the last few years. And I know John really likes his team this year.
Oh yeah,
he's got some good arms and a lot of depth. So we're expecting a good year in Starkville.
Right, and I think Oxford would be very similar in their timing. Bianco has seemingly done a marvelous job of getting very close to getting to that Omaha opportunity, and I know they would look to do that this particular season. But both schools, it's exciting how much there's talk about football, basketball, baseball. I mean, there's just a lot of momentum in both state and Ole Miss programs right now, and it's exciting to see our kids doing so well at a national standpoint.
I mean, on the whole, you've seen both these programs doing pretty good. Both teams went to a bowl game in football. I know MSU's basketball struggling. It is what it is, but the Ole Miss basketball team is doing great. 6-1 in the SEC, and then you mentioned you got a pair of top 15 baseball programs that could end up, hosting regionals, super regionals, and both I think are good enough to get to Omaha. And it's a pretty good time overall for the state of Mississippi in that regard. Yeah.
But we were talking about recruiting in the last segment. That goes back to the more that our teams get on TV, the easier it is to bring those kids into Mississippi because they see them on TV, whether it's baseball or football. And when our programs are successful, they get on the ESPNs and CBS. So all that stuff is really helping those athletic programs.
Yeah, I think that big TV deal, of course, with the ESPN and CBS helps. It kind of puts smaller schools like Ole Miss and State and Vandy and whoever on at least a more even ground with the LSUs and Alabamas, because it used to be just, the big schools got on TV because they're really good. So for good reason, but now you're seeing more exposure, I think, for everybody.
Talking about baseball, I love football tailgate. Love it. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing like going to Hoover to the SEC tournament to watch either State or Ole Miss play, because when they play, Alabama brings a crowd, but when State or Ole Miss play, they bring a crowd to Hoover.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like hearing those Harley Davidsons bringing those baseball teams in. I live for that. I ain't going to kid you.
Well, baseball, you look at football, and everything changes in football. We changed from a 25-second clock to a 40-second clock. Recruiting rules change day in, day out. Baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. It's been that way for I don't know how long. Yep. People love it.
Yeah.
And it's a sport that one of the most fun coaching jobs I ever did was coaching Little League baseball. Not coaching at Mississippi State, not coaching at Alabama, but coaching Little League baseball. Just the opportunity to do that.
Well, and I'd quickly, as as an athletic director, and I'd love your input or feedback on this. Is one of the things TCPS would strive to hold on to is that multiple sport athlete. Right. That we don't forget that kids need to be well-rounded, and we would love for our kids to play at least 2, potentially 3. We have 10 varsity sports that we offer here, so with a 1A school, 100 kids, there's more than ample opportunity to participate, maybe too much at times. We're stretching them thin, but nonetheless, we really feel like that multiple sport opportunities are good for athletes.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I've always, recruiting, I always love to go watch a football player play basketball, watch him play baseball, and the bigger schools, they've gotten away from that. It's harder for an athlete to excel in all the different sports, and that's not good because I think it helps to play all of them if you can.
You going to read it?
Jim, you used to read one of them things.
Yeah, at time or two. Time or two.
You want to let Jim introduce this one, Coach?
It doesn't just have to be football either. I mean, it could be within sports. Baseball, basketball.
Yeah, where is personal? I guess the question is personal responsibility.
Right.
When is it the machine versus individual and personal responsibility?
And that can be not just, I mean, it can go into the mental Teo situation. And, I mean, at what point does the athlete become responsible for his own actions?
Yeah, with the Ray Lewis and all that stuff, I guess.
Deerhorn.
Wow.
Hey, y'all two want to set y'all thoughts?
We gave Dasani the last segment.
Yep, there you go.
Y'all ready?
Yep.
Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to Eagle Sports Network. This is Aubrey Boren, TCPS Athletic Director, and again got a sports roundtable going on today, and we're discussing NFL players is where we're going to begin, and just individual responsibility when it comes to injury. There seems to be, guys, a lot of lawsuits going backwards. I was just reading something on concussions today to go back and redeem something that it seems is a known result of running into another player at the speeds that guys do that. I guess it's a tough question, and I'm not saying for a minute here I'd put in that we're not coming up with a solution, but just as we talk it out, where is that individual responsibility versus the owner's responsibility?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. This is my thought. I mean, I think as an individual, you always have to be responsible for your own actions. Just because, I mean, let's face it, as you mentioned, going into this, you can get hurt, you can get seriously hurt. I don't like to leave anything up to anybody else. I don't like to think, okay, if somebody's going to take care of me. I just don't like to think that. So I think as an individual, you have to look at that and say, okay, this is what I got, and this is what could happen. And not saying that owners aren't responsible. They are to some degree, or teams or whatever. But I think as an individual, you can't go into it saying you cannot go into the mindset thinking, okay, well, somebody's going to take care of me if this happens, because you can't bank on that.
Yeah, you should know the risk. Like if you're playing football, you know the risk. Okay, some bad things can happen. No matter how many safety measures you take, no matter how advanced the helmets and the padding might be, there's a chance you could get really hurt. Okay, it's just the nature of the game. And when it comes to somebody getting hurt, and then what happens after that is really what intrigues me. Whether the player, when should he come back from injury? What kind of treatment is he getting? Who bears the ultimate responsibility for letting him back on the field? Should the coach make that call? Should he let the player make the call? Because you've probably seen it, Rocky. A lot of players, maybe too hurt to play, but they're afraid they may lose their spot and lose their job, and they feel like they need to show everybody they're tough.
Yeah, I think they want to get out there, and you're in a big game, a big rivalry, or a big playoff game, and it's an important game, and I think obviously that's when the doctor has to make that decision. You know,
Yeah.
the coach it can't be left in the coach's hands. I think it's got to be in the doctor's hand. It might not have been that way 15, 20 years ago. I think most recently, obviously, you know, we're more educated, and doctors and trainers are responsible. And you know, I personally don't know a coach that would take that risk of overruling the doctor, you know, in that situation.
I think it was a first for me. You know, RG3.
Yeah.
With Dr. Andrews on the field. I mean, in all my life, I've never seen that much attention to an injury for a player. And I think is what you're mentioning, Brad. It looked like RG3 was just determined that he was going to finish that game, that there was no farther harm that was going to take place that couldn't be repaired after that game. And if he was such a competitor, what do you do with that as coach when they're saying, I'm playing?
You know, when you have that high quality of an athlete, those guys are wired a little different than normal people. They have a different pain tolerance than most people do, and they're so competitive as athletes, they don't want to let their teammates down. I know talking to Purnell earlier this year, he got hurt. Actually, is going to have surgery after the Super Bowl, and his groin is tore. This dude goes out and plays one of his best games of the year against New England, and he's hurt. You know, Ray Lewis coming back from his injury, you know, barely can move his arm. They come back. Those guys, they've got something different on the inside of them. I mean, even college kids, you know, they come back from pain that we would look and be like, there's no way that I could get up and move from that. And those guys, 2 plays later, they're back on the field playing. So I think, is it the doctor's? Yes, it is the doctor's responsibility to tell the coaches, no, he shouldn't play. And I think the doctor pretty much has to tell them, you can't go out there and play. Because that athlete and that player is so competitive, no matter what, they're going to try to get on that field to play.
I think it may be a little bit different at the professional level because they're getting paid so much. And at the
Right.
college level, I don't know, maybe it's a different dynamic, Rocky. I mean, I go back to the Gator Bowl. I remember Jonathan Banks got hurt, had a gash on his leg, and didn't get to play basically the second half at all. And Dan said after the game, just didn't feel comfortable putting him out there in that situation, even though they could have used him.
Right. I think he knew he was hurt, and he knew he wasn't 100%, and Dr. Linton also knew that too. So, but it is interesting. You know, I think about, you know, playing 30, 40 years ago. My dad was a football player. You know, probably had a concussion or two that I didn't realize. I saw stars a few times. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what I was looking at. So, you know, it's certainly headed in the right direction, and it's a problem, and I guess that's why we're discussing it today.
Now, you know, in high school this year, just a matter of fact, this year, there was a couple times where I just told the kid, you're not going back in the game. Right. The game's not that important for you, for us as a school and me as a coach to risk further injury to you. And it might not have been a concussion. It could have been a shoulder or something like that, but we have to take that responsibility, especially as high school coaches. We can tell them no. But on the professional level, it's kind of hard to tell a guy that's making more money than you, you can't go play.
They're not going to listen.
Well, and I think it's definitely a different day. When you mentioned the equipment earlier, the helmets have come just phenomenal moving forward. They've made the adjustment with special teams. You know, they changed where we kick off and those type of. I think special teams, from a high school coach's perspective, was, to me, if you wanted to make football safer, eliminate that contact. When 2 people are running full speed at that distance, you could eliminate a lot of injuries. But that'd be another topic for another day. But guys, thanks so much for joining us here at TCPS to talk sports and athletics. We appreciate you taking time out of it and all your input.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.